second ago. All right. What's up, Mr. Stu? How are you?
Hello. How are
I
you?
think I'm doing fantastic. I don't know. Do you know what number podcast this is for us over the years? It's like over 300 or something. I don't know.
Well, I know I put all of them up for audio and Podomatic,
Okay. Just
so
curious.
it can tell. This is episode 303.
Well, there you go. Well, we've gotten together every week consistently 300 times. So that's got to be 6, 7 years, probably more, longer than that. Because Anyway,
Yeah, that's pretty
good
good.
job. And I want to compliment you on what an excellent podcast buddy you've been. I don't know if that's the proper term,
Well,
but
there's nobody else I've done 300 podcasts with, Jim.
I talked to you more
So,
than most of my relatives. I mean,
yeah, that is a good point.
so what's our topic today, Stu? You're driving the show.
Well, actually, I'm going to refer to your article that you
Okay.
wrote, and hopefully everybody has checked out in their emails, because it's basically a mistakes article. And how can we best be experts in something
Uh huh.
is writing about our mistakes, because guess what? We all make them.
That's right.
And and mistakes, yes, some people view them as failures. I personally like to view them as learning experiences, as with chapter 5 of the Never Quit Mindset. Failing is a learning experience,
There you go.
right? So anyway, that's why I like mistakes articles. You've turned me on to that, because why? What do people like to read about more than success stories?
Oh, when someone crashes and burns and cheats on their wife, loses their money, gets castrated accidentally in an industrial accident. Well, maybe that was a little too far, but
Yeah, those are some mistakes for sure.
but that, yeah,
That I
everybody,
that I all those mistakes I would choose to learn from others than experience
especially
them myself.
especially that last one.
Mm,
So yeah, I think also if you look at like clickbait, thinking about what's up, C Ray, what's up, Vicky? What is clickbait? I mean, I've never seen a clickbait ad or a clickbait article title that said everything's great. So and so succeeds massively through own effort and hard work. It's all negative. All
yeah,
that stuff is negative. It seems like that's what attracts people is that negative spin. So that's why you kind of lead with the mistakes to slurp them up.
yeah. So the one thing, if you would share with us about you writing this article, because the step that you skipped that doomed your book,
The
right?
step
That
that
that is the article that you wrote.
uh-huh.
And you probably wrote it last week, I know, so it's probably not fresh on your memory. Like my stuff, I write first thing in the morning and get it out ASAP. But
Well, the biggest mistake, the thing that caused me to take 4 years to write my very first book was that I didn't have a plan.
right,
And if you don't have a plan, it's that what's that saying? If you don't plan, if you don't plan, you're actually planning to fail. There's some trite phrase of those who fail to plan to fail. Um, because if you don't have a plan, you don't have a roadmap. And so, like, if I was going to come up to Stu's house and crash on his couch for the Army Navy game, and I didn't have a map, and if I didn't have GPS, and all I pretty much knew was that I had to head generally north to try and find Stu's house, it would be tough.
yeah,
And eventually I could get there if I asked enough people. I mean, I could, through my own clues, make my way to Annapolis, then grab some kid who was all beefy and say, "Hey, where's Steve Smith?" And then he might beat me senseless.
Right.
But the thing is, if you have a book plan, these are gym statistics. I have found that, you know, about one out of every 100 people I meet usually says, "Hey, you wrote a book? I've always wanted to write a book." And then out of, if you put 100 of those people together, only about one out of the 100 people who say, "I've always wanted to write a book," actually writes a book. So about one in 10,000 people, from my experience, actually does it.
Yeah.
And what separates them is that they have a plan and then they execute on the plan. And a lot of people think that that plan, if you're, I know something, I'm an expert, so I should write a book. That's how my first book came about. That's how your first book came about.
Yeah.
You knew something and somebody put the bug in your ear of, "Hey, you ought to write a book." And maybe there was beer involved with your decision. Mine involved a pretty girl who said, "You're smart, you should write a book." And so you go right over here, start writing. And that is like the last thing you should do if you want to write a book. The last thing you should do is go from decision of I should write a book. You have that mental idea, you have that. Did you ever read Michael Gerber's book, The E Myth?
Mm-mm.
It's an okay book. The gist of it, it was real big back in the 90s, early 2000s. The gist of it is you have what he calls an entrepreneurial seizure,
Huh.
where you're like, "Hey, I know how to do this and I'm doing this." He uses the idea of, I make pies. Okay. I'm a pie maker and I work for the baker and I'm doing all the work and I'm busting my ass and I love making pies. And everybody that comes in says, "Your pies are the best." And all my relatives tell me all the time, "Hey, you should open your own pie shop." And then one day you realize, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to open my own pie shop because I'm great at making pies. I love pies. People love my pies." So then you open your pie shop and you realize, "Oh, holy shit, nobody's marketing my pies. Nobody's paying to run the bookkeeping. Nobody's ordering the supplies. So now I have to, in addition to being pie maker, have to put on the hat of the accountant, of the
Mm.
salesperson, of the marketing person, of all these other things." And instead of making pies 8 hours a day, which I used to love, now I'm spending 10 hours a day running the business and I've only got 4 hours a day to make pies. And now I freaking hate making pies because I'm doing all this other stuff. And so then you fail.
Mm.
That is the gist of an E myth. The E myth. How does that translate into this? Well, I made the decision I'm going to write a book and I go and start writing, but what exactly are you writing about? How should you segment what you're writing about? How are you going to lead somebody from A to Z to actually get a result? What result are you getting them? Are you writing a book and then going to go in search of an audience? How are you going to sell this book once it's written? Even if you are selling the book, nobody actually makes money with books. So, how are you really going to make money because of this book? What does your value ladder look like?
Mm.
What's your monetization strategy inside the book? And so, what most people do is they start writing, then they get discouraged because they're operating on motivation rather than discipline and a plan. So, they will probably spend an average of about 2 hours on a Saturday and then never pick it up again.
Oof.
That is my direct experience with people who say, I want to write a book because they don't plan the book first. So if this is the wrong thing to do, now was this the gist of the article, Stu?
Um, yeah, a little bit. We talked about building a foundation and a plan. I would say this is the gist of
Well,
the
this is the
article.
gist of the mistake that they make.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
if you want, what is an effective book plan? What is an effective plan for your book? Well, the first thing you got to do is define who is going to be the ideal book buyer. Who's going to be the person that is ready, willing, and able to pay you for the information in your book? So that means instead of doing what most people do, which is to write a book and then go in search of an audience, you actually define who the audience is first and then write the book that they really want to pay for. That's the first step, and that is the first step that most people miss. All right. Luckily, by accident, I when I wrote my first book, I wrote a book on how to sell your house yourself. But in a sense, I was writing for an audience I already knew because I was in mortgage and real estate. So, next thing God do is do you start writing yet? No.
Mm-mm.
So, the next thing you need to do is define who you are as it relates to the audience. Okay. And what you want to do is define who you are relative to them that makes you smart, makes you relevant, and makes you appealing to them. What about you is going to be attractive to that audience? So, again, fitness, when people think about Stu Smith tells them like former Navy SEAL, um, high school athlete, certified strength and conditioning coach, coach all the tactical guys coming out of the Naval Academy, founder of Heroes of Tomorrow, have the highest graduation percentage of any coach that sends people to buds. Those are the things that matter. He does not tell you about the fact that he loves lawnmower repair, that he loves beagles, and that he's actively encouraging his children to deliver grandchildren at some point. Um,
Yes.
he shares the relevant details. Now, it's also important to do this because you want to sell you on you. Because one of the other things that makes people stop when they're writing their book is that their internal editor starts criticizing them. And since they don't have a plan and since they don't have their act together, um, it's real easy for your internal voice to tell you that you're a dork and that you're never going to write a book, and you might as well just, abandon hope. It ain't happened. Um, but at this point, you want to be able to sell you on you and you want to be able to sell them on you. Okay. So then, third thing you want to figure out, and really the pre-step on this, if I was going to say that, is defining your why. Why do you want to write a book? Getting a real clear reason why you want to write a book is critical. Okay. So that's really the pre-step. Why do you want to, and a lot of people want to get all philosophical and stuff. But I want to write a book because I want to make a crap ton of money. My latest book that I'm starting to work on, I'm writing it with the intention of being able to get on big podcasts. Like I really want to be on a big podcast like Theo Vaughn or Joe
Mm.
Rogan or Sean Ryan or the Mic Drop podcast or Black Rifle, which probably would never happen, but you never know. I
Oh,
want to get on a big podcast, so I'm going to have to write a book that's a little bit more general that would be of interest to a different group. So, anyway, so once you have defined your why, defined your audience, defined who you are, the next part of your plan is coming up with your topic and your title, because that's going to form a filter that's going to frame everything that comes after that.
hmm.
Now, why does that matter? Well, because if you have the topic, if you have the title, which your topic's really only going to come down to a result or a problem, a result you can provide or a problem you can solve. And then you got a title and then subtitle. That, like I said, is going to create a filter that just drives everything forward. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to create your outline. But this is not going to be one of those big, long 10, 15 page outlines, where you've got, um, you remember learning to do outline in school, outlining in school was like fifth grade. I learned it. It's
Hmm.
like you got your main point, then you got to have at least two sub points. And then if you're going to have sub points, you got to have at least two sub points for each sub points for sub points. And all of a sudden, you start outlining this book and thinking of all the stuff you want to include, and you end up with like a 10-page outline of all the stuff that how this thing's going to be structured. And when as soon as you do that, your subconscious says, hell no, not doing it. Just not happening. I'm not doing it. Okay, because then you're like, and you're waking up in the middle of the night with, oh yeah, and I need to remember to tell this story at sub point 3A from main point 2C, and it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen.
Mm,
So what I mean, yeah, for like one in a gajillion people.
right.
So what I tell people to do, and what all of my successful students have done, of which there are just a tiny handful here, right here on this board, is you come up with a list of questions that need to get answered in order for the book content to get created. So instead of coming up with a 10-page outline, come up with a list of 10 to 12 main questions that need to get answered, and those are going to form the basis for each chapter in your book. And then finally, those questions get turned into chapter titles, so they get translated. And pretty much right here, there are some other things. I have people order their Amazon cover before they actually start creating the content, because that gives psychological momentum, makes it feel real.
Hmm.
But then after that, it's just a question of creating the content. And there's a lot of strategies for doing that. What's up, Bill from Albuquerque? What's up, Paul? Mary's here. Um, but that's how you plan it out to actually be successful. Because you can also over plan. You can overthink it and cause yourself to get paralyzed. And that 10-page outline is the surest way to do it.
Perfect, Jim.
So that's the plan.
Well, I will say this. I like the plan because I have had many, like I have a book idea right now,
Hmm.
and it's floating in my head and it's starting to
Hmm.
drive me crazy. And usually when it, is like consuming my like leisure time is
Uh-huh.
when I like say, okay, I got to put this on paper. And that's when I start the plan, the process.
Okay.
But that is after years of learning how to write books and When I first started, it would just, I've always been a decent writer, but it was always in my head, and then I'd get it on paper, and I didn't have a plan, right? I
So,
really didn't have a plan, and it took a really long time to do it.
mhm.
And I did dumb stuff like instead of just taking pictures of the exercises, I was drawing them out on a computer.
Oh crap, dude.
I wasted, I don't know, 4 months and much of my time after work drawing stick figures with exercises. And I was like, yeah, this isn't working. Um,
And then you had some dude take a picture of you, and then
right.
you're
And I was
like,
just like, oh, I
"Hey."
should have been taking pictures all this time. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, it was just a stupid, not thinking, no plan.
Right.
And, first thing that came to mind, there was no like secondary or tertiary effects of that plan or that idea that I should have really thought about.
So what's
So,
your plan now for writing a book? Like give me the steps that you go through in order to do that. What will be the steps you'll go through in order to write that book that is floating around in your head and ready to pop?
well, I already know who I'm writing it for and why, right?
Uh-huh.
So that is kind of built in already.
Okay.
But um, that does matter because sometimes I write for the older version of that person than the younger version of that person. So
Right.
there's some changes in the who. Um, but I typically start off with, since these are mostly workout books, I like to
Uh-huh.
write the workout first.
Okay.
Like I will spend time and effort and rehearsals and practice and testing it out, mastering the 12-week plan that I'm creating in this book.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the meat and potatoes of the book I get done. Then I go to the table of contents and say, all right, I got the book done. Now I need to explain the workouts. I need to show the workouts with pictures and explanations. And I need some introductory chapters about the book, what it's all about, who's it for, and then, the obligatory nutrition and um, where you can buy more stuff on the back end.
Okay. Um I'm just kind of mapping this out. So your process is you intrinsically know the why and you intrinsically know the who. I would say though, in fact, I just wrote Jim's desk for copying content for the elite people that goes out on, I think it'll go out on the first, I guess this Friday. I just sent it over to Susan. Why you need to have an avatar done instead of always depending on the easy button. And that's so that everything is consistent. And so
Right.
you might, the why is, hey, ultimately the why comes down to why am I doing it and why am I doing it for them? What's going to be the big payoff? Okay.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know that intrinsically, but sometimes it helps to bring it back to the forefront to really make sure, is that still the reason? Are they still the people? Is this what they're, let's really identify what's going on with them, who they
Yeah.
are. I do that every time I'm doing a new offer. I'm double checking the avatar. I'm double
Mm.
checking.
That's smart.
me and what about me is applicable here, and then coming up with the actual offer and the offer stack, so it's not assumed what they're going to be getting before
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do my thing.
I would agree.
And then you come up with the basic stuff, the meat and potatoes, the core content of what you're doing. And something you said that you just kind of brushed over, but this is why you've been doing this for 25, 30 years instead of just doing it for a couple years and then getting a job at Planet Fitness. And that is I heard you say, I test it, I do it, I verify it, and only then do I teach it.
Yes.
So I know some of that is send Jim workouts, see if he squeals or says it's good.
Yeah, test you out a little bit.
You know, but that's the key. And then you get all that stuff straight. It's, the core meat of the book. Is it about flexibility? Is it about having gains with a Z? Whatever it is, that's the core thing. And then you flesh it out with the stuff that it needs, the pictures, the links to videos, the explanations that somebody's going to need, and then you add in the main parts. You know what stuff goes into a book. It's got to have an intro, it's got to have a conclusion, it's got to have a kind of a little rah-rah section in it. You got to have the right chapter titles. You got to have transitions between sections of. I mean, you just kind of put it together so that it quacks like a duck.
Yeah.
And then you include the expected parts, which I thought was funny. How you said, yeah, and I throw in the obligatory nutrition.
It's true.
I just think it's funny.
I mean, I'm not writing a nutrition book, but I think you should use it as a chapter at least.
Yeah, Burger King is not a training table. So, and then you add your money makers. You said it a little bit differently, but basically Stu takes links to all his books and says, here's a bunch of other stuff I got. And it goes right at the beginning because he doesn't expect you to read the whole thing. So, put all those links up front, kids.
Yes.
And then you publish it. So that's Stu's way of planning out and executing a book. And what that tells me is that you've done this at least 10, 20, 30 times, if not more.
Yes.
And so that's Stu's method, which I think is great.
And I've made mistakes many times before I learned this method.
Sure.
And I think it's great your system, because I had already written 30 books before I took your system the first time when you taught how to write, because I didn't know how to publish it on Amazon at the time. Right. And so that was a very big aha moment for me. And you just helped me streamline that system completely.
Yeah.
In fact, the year after I learned how to do that system, I challenged myself to write a book a month. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. That I didn't think that was a great idea, but I didn't want to say anything.
That one crushed me. And I also learned I need to work on selling a book more than writing a book.
That's right. Don't just write them, kids. Learn how to sell them. And so that first book that you did was the first book that you ever got to be a bestseller on Amazon, which was pretty cool.
That is correct. After having 10 published books up on Amazon already.
Yeah. So that was fun. What would you say are some of the mistakes that you have made over the years publishing books, other than trying to write a book a month? That's noble.
Yeah, it was a little aggressive. But here's the thing. I saw a need for all of those books.
I know you did.
Here's the thing. It was kind of like your advice that you gave to the dog trainer
Hmm.
about writing a book,
Yes, this
right?
one.
Right. Dog training mistakes.
Yeah,
Now write one for a beagle, write one for a husky, write
right,
one for a chihuahua. That's
right,
basically what I did with fitness tests, because all the fitness tests that I was writing about that year had about 10 exercises that made them the same, right? 3 here, 3 there, they all shared the same 10 basic exercises that I had to write about,
right,
and to put into the programming. They were just different, a little bit different. And that's what I changed each of those books. So I didn't have to really write a book a month. I rewrote 50% of the book a month
right.
to create those programs. So um yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but that was what I did when I was trying that big
Yeah,
challenge. Is I saw a need for it, and I think that is probably one of my biggest whys of why I write a book. Is I see a need for my audience to update their training methodology.
sure. Yeah, a change. I mean, when there's a change, then that creates a need and it creates an opportunity. And the thing is, if you're doing it because there's been a change and there is an opportunity, usually that opportunity has a window, and you ain't got 4 years to write the book to take advantage of the window.
Yeah.
And so again, having a method, having a plan, having a way to map it out so that it aids you in just creating that slippery slide to be able to get it done is even more critical, because there's nothing worse than publishing a book that people needed last year and don't need this year. Now, there's
Mm.
stuff about, you know, teaching principles rather than fads and things like that. There's really no need for a book on MySpace. If you're still writing that one, you probably want to give up the ghost on that. However, writing a book on timeless principles of social media that will never change, that would be a good one. And
Very
then
good one.
you could have things within the book that if people wanted to know, like what are the top 5 latest trends on Facebook, scan the QR code and go to my website and get those. But that's not the kind of, I mean, I'm kind of diverging a little bit, but that's part of your plan.
Right.
Is you don't want anything in a book that can go out of date, especially when things change quickly. But something that Stu has always been really good at, that I have had to learn to do because I don't get lazy, I just want to get to the finish line as fast as I can, is putting links to external stuff in a book. Like you're real good about putting links to videos in
Mm.
your book. Like, hey, want to know how, want to watch me do this exercise?
Yeah.
Go here
Uh,
or scan this, and you can watch me do the exercise. I mean, that's perfect. Uh, and you
yeah.
just
That was the perfect evolution as ebooks became popular.
right,
Instead of a picture of an exercise, embed a video,
right, or
or
both.
link a video. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would, again, but that's part of the planning, is how can I provide information that will be as evergreen as possible, but also have things inside the book that will cause people to want to engage with me, and I can update it externally. I learned that real big time back in 2001, 2002, 2003, when Yannick Silver and I came out with a book called 33 Days to Online Profits. And it's just as legit today as it ever was. The tools have changed, but the method has not changed. It can't change.
Right.
And the one we made a lot of money out of that book for several years because there were so many links to tools that people needed to do stuff. But we put direct links in the book instead of redirect links that when stuff died or changed or something happened, we could have just changed the redirect and every book would have automatically been sending people to the right place. But we started having books with dead links and other things like that. So that's another thing. Make sure that any links you use in your books either are never going to change or you are running them through some sort of a redirect that you can control and change if something changes or better opportunity shows up. So that little word to the wise, again, that's part of planning. But I do like your Stu Smith book plan
Oh, well, thank you.
because that's teaching stuff that you know. Have you ever taken and repurposed any of your content that you have done from your many Q&A calls or FAQ calls or other podcasts and things that you've done? Have you ever repurposed any of that as part of at least part of a book?
Mm, good question. I don't know. I've turned them into shorts often, just to make them shorter, easier to consume on social media, but I haven't put any of those into books or created a book around it, like, write off all the text of, transcribe all those Q&As or podcasts even. I haven't tried that yet.
Well, you know, we got genies that will take your
I know. Yeah.
transcript sections and then turn them into. Have you tried taking a chunk of a transcript and throwing it into the rewrite, repurpose, recycle genie and
No, but
having it turn it into Stu Smith written text?
I'm gonna do that though.
I didn't just drop a breadcrumb there, Stu.
No,
I dropped a loaf of bread.
no, that's a good one. I And the beauty of the StreamYard too is you can download the audio file, send it right to the text
Right.
section, and then boom.
Yeah, the key though is to go through and slurp out the appropriate parts. Don't just give it the whole transcript.
Right.
Give it,
Okay.
grab out the chunks. That's why I say that's why when if you're doing any kind of Q&A, that's the perfect place to grab, you know, the question and the answer.
Oh,
And then
so
you
yeah.
grab the question and the answer, throw it in the rewrite, recycle, repurpose genie,
Mm,
and that can write an article, can write a blog post. Um,
okay.
and then the other thing, obviously, is inside of your book, you can say, "Hey, I had a really cool discussion with about this with Jim Edwards, or was that dude Jeff? Are you still doing a podcast with him every
Every
once
now and
in a
then
while?"
he had to move, so he's in the process of moving. So we've been a delay for a couple of months.
Right. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is that's the perfect thing at the end of a chapter to say, hey, if you'd like an in-depth discussion on this, I did a podcast with Jeff so-and-so or with so-and-so, or I interviewed Eddie Gallagher about this or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can name drop, and then you don't just give it to them. They have to register. They have to
Mm,
sign up somewhere and give you their name and email in order to access that. And you can either have each individual thing they have to register for, or you have like a goodies page for that particular book.
yeah.
And then they go and they might come because of one thing that you tell them about inside the book. Hey, if you want this interview, you want to watch this video, you want this, they go to a central page to register for the bonuses for um the never quit thinking or whatever whatever
Yeah.
the book is. And then when they get to the page, they'll see, oh, there's all this stuff from the book, so it just makes it easier on you
Yeah,
to
sure.
but the bottom line is that is a way that you can leverage the content that you've already done to help make your books even more valuable.
Smart.
um
Yeah. Okay.
And that, that's the other thing when, just thinking about your model here. And if you listening to this or getting anything out of this, let us know in the comments, because this is like this is the paid stuff as far as what I'm dropping
Yeah,
on
this is
Stu.
good. Yeah.
But you say, flesh it out instead of you having to sit down and write out the parts where you want to flesh it out. Go find where you did a Q&A. Go find where you did an interview, or where you talked about something, or come up with a Q&A where hey, I'm going to need this and this and this and this and this and this to flesh out the book.
Mm.
Come up with that list of questions, answer those questions on a podcast, or get somebody to interview you, and then chop up that transcript, feed it into the rewrite, recycle, repurpose genie, and have it turn it from the spoken word into the written word. And I don't know if you noticed, but um, hang on one sec. Do, 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 do. Let me show you this real quick. This is something you may or may not have noticed, but on the rewrite, recycle, repurpose genie, I have massively increased the amount that you can put in here.
Mm.
And I have also added your personal writing style down here so you can load that. So when you've defined your personal writing style, you can take those chunks and rewrite them. Pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
this will really help you to take your own thoughts and turn them into useful, usable content that you can use anywhere. Um, and I think that's something to keep in mind. You're very prolific with that stuff, and this doesn't have to take hardly any time at all. And it's still your stuff, because all you're doing is just redigesting and recycling, repurposing your own ideas, which is very different than saying, hey, ChatGPT, tell me about fitness or tell me about nutrition for this thing. And then it just kind of tells you whatever.
Right.
So anyway, that's a cool technique that you can use. All right.
I like it.
Um, Bill says asking AI to interview you about a topic gives you a starting place too. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got our chatbot genies in there will interview you orally, actually, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
Those are the soul genies. So that's one way to really slurp the info out of you as well. So lots of cool tools to do that. Um, Vicky says, I noticed and I love using my personal writing style. You rock, Jim. Cool. Okay. Well, Stu, if they want to get in shape, what should they do?
They can find some information and programming at stewsmithfitness.com. And I just wrote an article about finding your why. Why do you want to do anything? It's a really good one. You can see that in the articles section over at Stu Smith Fitness. Very
I
cool.
actually went out of my way to log into the school account and comment on that article because it was so good. And
Cool.
if you're on mobile, you can scan the QR code in the upper left. Of course, if
Very
you're on
cool.
mobile, you really can't scan the QR code, can you? Anyway,
Yeah. Got to have a
it's there.
desktop.
Go to go to stewsmithfitness.com. If you're not a member of CopyandContent.AI yet, you should be, because we got all kinds of cool goodies for you. Definitely will help you to accelerate your success and absolutely get better results faster. So thanks for sharing your process, Stu.
Thank you.
And I hope y'all found this valuable. Y'all have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.